Hey friends, I'm Daniel Nesbitt, and welcome back to designing a sans serif font. In the last episode, we went through and got through quite a few of the lowercase characters, and in this episode, I figured I would take some of those and expand them to the uppercase characters. So we're just going to jump right in, and I'm going to go with the obvious choice, which is the O. And what I'm going to do is just kind of similar to what we've done in the past. Just basically take this lowercase one and then turn it into the uppercase one. Now, this is kind of fun because I actually just get to really just move this around, and I don't really need to do a whole lot beyond that, which is actually kind of a nice thing about these kind of angular type faces. It really makes it easy just to quickly go in and resize things or push things around. It's amazing how much easier a typeface gets without curves. But just taking a look at that, I mean, that seems about what you'd expect, I think. So the other thing I'm just going to check real quick, because I believe I did. No, doesn't look like you even need to do that. Even better. So getting those uppercase O's out of the way, that is awesome. The other thing that I also wanted to get out of the way was, let's go with the P here. Again, just going through. Get some side bearings set there. But I just want to make sure that I'm getting kind of those common pieces all squared away here. And again, for something like this now, I've got some decisions that I've got to make here as I zoom in. I think I got this all lined up correctly. Looks like I do. So with this one, I'll get that in place there. So I know for sure that I don't need that side of the serif. But what I'm looking at then is, do I want this to go straight across the top and then down, or do I just want to leave it like that? And then the other part too is, how far do I go down? Because at some point we're going to come back and pick up the R here, and I'm going to need room for the leg on that. So what I'm going to do is we're actually just going to bump that up by 20 points there, and I'm just going to see how that works. I actually don't even know that I mind this going on up here. That could actually be kind of fun just to leave it like that. But we're going to go through, we're going to get the R done as well here. And for that, I'm just going to bring in the P like this. And then the next question becomes, how do I go about making that leg? Now, one thought that I had was to make the same angle as this here. But I don't know if that's going to be too much or not. My concern is that it's going to get too, I don't know what the right phrase really is, but other than it's not going to look right. But we're going to give it a go first, and basically what I'm doing here is just stealing the dimensions off this side of the O because I do like them. Get that kind of lined up, and I know my angle isn't perfect there, but that's fine. So steal that out of there, and then pop that over, get that all lined up. So it looks like I could have a couple options here. The first one being I could just line this up somehow, but I'm not really sure that I like that idea so much, if I'm completely honest. What I am also going to do... Actually going to grab this one here too. Oops. So I'm probably going to want a serif there. But I think this is actually going to kind of help a little bit because this is going to help me figure out kind of where I want this serif to end up at. And I definitely want to kick it out some more, maybe just something like there. We'll quickly get my metrics refreshed here as well. Actually, I'll just probably use the P for that. So what I'm gathering is that we're not going to be able to use the same angle. Now, that is going to beg, well, let's try it before I completely dismiss it. Because my concern is if I introduce a new angle, what's that going to look like? Is that going to make this look worse? Is it going to make it look funky? You know, is there a different angle that I maybe can incorporate instead? Because really, it's, if I was doing this, you know, with just curves, I would probably, do something like that. But what I'm concerned or curious about is how does that look? And maybe that's not the worst. I guess we'll find out. Or maybe we just pull the classic type trick and make it close enough, but not so much that people notice. Sometimes that's okay too. So I'm going to have it meet about halfway there. And I'm going to actually bring in my serif a little bit as well so it feels more even on each side of the stroke there. The other thing that I'm going to do too, because this is looking a little on the light side, is I'm going to thicken that up a little bit as well. So it kind of has that appearance that these look about the same thickness without actually being the same thickness. The last thing I'm going to do is just taper the top a little bit, just to give it a little bit of so it doesn't feel like it's kind of bulking up, even though I guess looking at the bottom too, it kind of runs into the same issue there. I'm gonna see if I can leave that though and get away with it, but there we go. So it's kind of an interesting R. It definitely has some character, we can say that. We'll roll with that and see how that goes. What else do we have? We could jump in and do the U. And again, just stealing some letters here. Name of the game. Make sure I get my metrics on there as well. Not sure how I got rid of those so fast. Now for the U, I decided, I guess already ahead of time, that I don't want the serif in there. Nothing against the serif, I just don't like the idea of it being there. So what I'm going to do is I think we're just going to borrow the O for a moment. And I'm probably just going to use that as my base for... if I get my right shortcuts here, just kind of use that as my base for aligning this point, which I'm going to bring a little bit over. We're going to take this here. We'll just kind of push this out to the edge. And from there, I'm just going to drag this up so that that's in line. As far as this part goes, that is a little bit different than the O is, but I think for now I'm just going to leave that. And let's just see where this takes us. The other thing that I've also got to figure out, which I'm aware of, is the serifs as well. We'll just borrow those from the I. I think I may have mentioned this earlier, but I know some people have asked about components, and this is where I have to fess up and tell everybody that, yes, I should probably use components for serifs. And for some reason, I never do. It's purely just a bad habit. And in a future episode, we'll definitely take a look at components. I'm promising that to myself and to anybody else who's watching this, because they are very useful if I were to ever change the serif, or if I wanted to do something different, or if I just wanted to rely on one and not have to worry about copying and pasting. They really do come in handy. It's just old habits die hard, so I have to be upfront with everybody watching on that one. So that's my thing on components, but trust me, they are in my mind. So now that we're kind of getting some of these characters wrapped up, I did want to go back and take a look at something like the N, because we can get this kind of, I think, cleared up pretty well. And we'll go through and we'll just kind of get some stuff set up here. And I'm just going to go off of the cap H for a width. I think that lines up about right. That was 1 point off. If you are watching and you design type for fun, otherwise it doesn't matter, but in the comments, does anybody else do this where you play a little game with yourself just to see how close you get to your reference point before you check? Or is that just me? I've often wondered that. So, all joking aside, we'll just kind of jump back here. And now that I've got that set up, go through and just give this a little bit of a rotate here. Not looking for anything too perfect yet, just close enough is good enough. And all I'm going to do is just bring these points to the corners. And then from there, a couple things that we know with the uppercase N is that I don't need this part of the serif. So we can bump that over, and we can bump this one over as well. And actually, don't even need that one at all. For reasons I should probably study some type history about and find out why, but oh well. So just kind of jumping back here then, if I'm just going to pull this H up here for reference. One thing I do know is that this downward angle does need to be a bit thicker, which is fine. And the way, I need to figure out a way to do this. So one thought that I had, which I think I'm going to go with, is if we just add some points here. Because I think what I want to do is take this whole point here. We're going to move that 50 points over. So it kind of thins things up a little bit there, and then we'll kind of thicken it up that way as well. And kind of what I'm hoping is that that starts to look somewhat the same. Maybe I could get by with a little less there, just knowing that it's tapering into a vertical piece there. I think that should work out pretty well. And I mean, it looks like an N, so, you know, that's what we're after. And it seems like it's decent on width as well, which, you know, I'm just going to call good on that. I'm pretty happy with that. I'll deal with the M in a moment, and the reason that I'm going to skip over the M is because I'm not exactly sure how wide I want that to be, and I kind of did the same on the lowercase as well. I've just been kind of going along with the letters that I know are kind of a sure bet on how I'm feeling. One of the other ones I suppose I could do, and I actually wanted to try this first with the uppercase, was the letter C. Because naturally, you can imagine there are some similarities there. But for some reason, it just felt like this one would be easier to work with, and I guess we'll find out if that's actually true or not. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to go ahead and trim out that center part there. I'm actually going to pull up another version alongside. So obviously that aperture is a little too close for comfort. So what I'm going to do is I've got to determine where I want this to end at, and I think we're just going to start somewhere like that. Maybe something like that. Because the two trains of thought I have is if it comes up like this, or if I just shear it off somehow, which could work. It could. I guess we'll just have to see here. So what my thought was on that was more or less to delete that point. And this is where it's going to get a little bit goofy here for a moment, so bear with me. But do that there. So I'm just going to do enough to know whether or not I'm on the right track. And we'll definitely get some of this cleaned up in a moment here, but see, I don't know if something like that works a little bit better, and I'm kind of inclined to say no, if I'm honest, because we've got all these angles, but one thing that almost every letter has in common is that it does have a fairly flat side, so it feels like if I change this and do something different, that's not going to kind of stay true to the face. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave it at that, but then I'm going to go on to the second idea that I had, which was to kind of taper this a little bit. I don't know that it needs to be much, but basically I'm looking to just kind of give this a nod to that taper there, which again, I don't think it works very well. You know, this might just be a deal where it's kind of stuck doing what it's doing. The only other thought I had was if something like that would work. Because I genuinely think it would be a little bit more interesting if it just didn't come down into a flat point. But I also understand I might be fighting a losing battle here as well. And actually that even kind of gets lost a little bit. So I think we're just going to chalk this up to this being what the type wants to do. So I'm just going to kind of back off some of these points a little bit because I really don't need them to be as long as they are. And yeah, even if I back this down a little bit, that doesn't seem too bad. It just kind of centers the opening a little bit, which I think is fine. And I guess while we're sitting here, it just makes sense that I would probably do the G as well. For the G in this one, I'm just going to use the C as a component. And then we'll just bring in the pieces that I need to make the parts that make a G. And this is also going to be another point where I've got to figure some things out because I can't really leave that there like that. I'm going to have to bring this down a little bit. Give a couple of G's there just to see how that plays together. So the thing is, how much do I want to close up that little gap there? And is there a way I could kind of play with it this way as well? Which it seems like there might be. So that's kind of cool. And that actually buys us a little bit of space to play around with as well, which I'm actually fully on board with. I'm going to have to decompose this just to get that piece over a little bit more. But that, you know, that actually doesn't look too bad to me. just to kind of give it some of that angular feel. Maybe even back off that a little bit too. Not too shabby. So it's kind of got a fun effect going on there, and I think I can be on board with that. But I think I'm actually going to flatten it out too a little bit as well. I'd say that looks pretty good. And again, we'll do some testing with some proofs as well and determine if that's where that's going to end up at. But I think for now, I mean, that it seems fine to me. And let's see. I guess, the last one we'll do is probably the other very obvious choice here. We'll get the Q as well. And what I'm going to do for that, at least to start, is to just grab the crossbar from the N here and effectively just try and straighten it up as much as I can. Q is one of those that is my personal Achilles heel. I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but it's always quick to want to jump on something like the S or something like the X, which I get. Those are difficult letters, but for some reason the Q always trips me up. Even go a little bit further inward this way, just to make it really obvious that it's a Q. So, not too bad. And I think, even for a display face, when I jump away from it, even from this kind of distance, it still reads about like I want it to, so I think I can be okay with that. So, again, another episode with some good progress, just kind of catching up with the uppercase letters a little bit. And honestly, I'm really starting to love how this is turning out. I don't know that I really had much of a plan or a thought when I got started on this as to how some of these shapes were going to look. But just seeing how some of these round characters are starting to come together, it's actually really making me excited about where this typeface is going to end up at. So anyway, I think we're going to leave it there for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that like button if you haven't already. I'm also keeping the comment section open. One of the things that I tell people is, as much as this is about maybe learning or picking up some tips and tricks from what I'm doing, if you see anything that's catching your eye about this, throw it in the comment section. We're here to learn and find new ways to do things. So that's always an option as well. And last but not least, if you're enjoying these videos, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because I do try and get some videos out on a pretty regular basis, on a weekly basis, and you always want to be on top of when the next one is coming out. So with that said, as always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.